You talk about this pretense, you've just mentioned it here, this sort of pretending you don't care about something, pretending you're upset about something. One of the things that you talk about during your time at Harvey Nichols, which I think broadly was a happy and certainly a very successful time, but you do say often that you pretended that your family wasn't more important than work, which obviously it was. Is that something I think that still happens to women?
Oh, of course it does. I mean, I think the biggest problem is even more so with men and having paternity leave. You know, it's not seen as being driven. If you look at the sort of business model, most business models, and certainly in lots of the corporate world, it's kind of like a racehorse where you put the blinkers on, you go, there's the goal, you're racing to that end line. And invariably, the end line in business is profit. Look at The Apprentice, for Christ's sake.
Must I?
Do you do it anymore, do you?
My kids like it sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to see the awful wankers on it.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So you go, I wouldn't employ any of you lot, you're all a bunch of knobs. And it's not about who is the most, creative, who's got the leadership skills. It's about who will make the most and get that most money at the end. Look, it gave us Katie Hopkins, for Christ's sake. What can you say? That sort of aggressive, linear way to approach work. I can't remember the question because I've gone off.
Well, no, it's interesting because you're bringing me on to my next one. What do you mean by circular ambition? So you're talking about linear ambition.
You're talking about family. So circular ambition or life ambition is about being happy and fulfilled. That should be, I think, generally the most ambitious that we want. So to cut off those aspects of life that are so important to your friends, family, your parents, and just be driven on this business road and not expect your teams of people to be influenced by all the other parts of their life is absolutely crazy. So most people, for example, paternity leave, some of the best paternity leave in this country is with the big banks. They give guys 6 months off paternity leave. It's fantastic. Most don't take it. Most don't take it because the culture is be in at this hour, work all the hours that God sends. This is what we need to make. So most men saying, bye, I'm clearing off for 6 months to look after the baby within that culture, feel embarrassed to take it. When I was at Harvey Nicks and I had children, I'd be sitting in the board meeting that would be going on to 7 o'clock in the evening. And you'd think, oh my God, 3 hours, someone could have had a heart bypass and we're still looking at numbers and discussing this. And I would nip out to ring the nanny and say, can you make sure that Milo has got his stuff for school tomorrow, whatever. Why was I unable to say, this is really running over, I know it's important, but you can catch me on the phone, I need to get back for my kids. I was embarrassed. And I think most people still to this day...
More socially acceptable, professionally acceptable to say, I need a wee.
Well, yeah, it was exactly I need a wee, and then just ring because this was before mobiles. So we need to shift that because most people want to do their best at work. Most people actually want to feel that they're free to discuss their family, free to discuss the other issues that might be in their life. Because when you are able to do that and you are fully bringing yourself to work, then of course you bring the best out in people and people give the best to business.
Quite. Millennials are rejecting this linear career trajectory, which we've talked about. They're rejecting it. And the streams are crossing in that what millennials are now demanding is what women have secretly, embarrassedly wanted all along. But is this way of work failing men? So I'm a mother of 2 sons. I'm married to a man, and none of them can relate in any way either to this culture that you have rejected, this sort of alpha male culture. They're not those types of blokes. And is it failing men? You've already highlighted that men are spending less time with their new baby than they would probably like, but is it failing them in other ways?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you are probably with lots, your young sons and your husband is, we're not talking about the average people here. And I think...
We live in Brighton, so...
She lives in Brighton. She's very creative. Is my jacket rattling? Oh, I didn't realise. Thank you. That was nice. A note from the front, your jacket's rattling. Thanks. So you know what the thing is, Sally, we can take out stats and say, oh, I know these people are really good, and I know these guys and they're great, and my children are that. That's true, but we are talking about, when we look at the system today, we are talking about the businesses where, quite frankly, for example, take my business, the retail business, 80% of all buying decisions are made by women. 80%, even, you know, choosing their men's pants and what car, it's bought by women.
Yeah.
When you look at the retail organisations, the fashion industry particularly, between 60 and 80% of women are within that industry. 10% are on boards. So either we're rubbish and we can't quite make it up to a certain level, or we don't want to, or something is wrong with the system. So you've got an evolved guy who you're married to, you've got evolved young men, children who maybe don't see this as an issue. I remember once talking with my son Milo about being a feminist. He goes, why do you need to, Mama? Look what you've achieved. And you go, because we have to do this. We have to do this for the other women. And we have to do it for the future of young men like you. Now, interestingly, when it comes to millennials, there is no security. They're saying, why do I need to work like that? Because I'm not sure I'm going to get the house. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to have the life that you've got. I mean, I grew up in a generation where you thought you had to do better than your parents. That's just not going to happen. So they're looking at their lives and thinking, how do I feed all of me and my soul and my creativity and my whole life, rather than just going on this one track, which quite frankly isn't really going to get me anywhere. But also now looking at Generation Z, who are different to the millennials, those kids are coming in and going, they're lacking the freedom. They're saying kids are doing less drugs and drinking less, and because they've seen their parents all like rocking it and thinking, God, I so don't want to be like that. So you've got all this other new, which are going to be quite a serious little generation coming in. And it's not that they don't want to work, they do, but this security, this infrastructure, this security that we all need in our lives isn't there. And so if we look differently at the workplace and we become more flexible, and I mean that in generosity of spirit and respectful, then surely we are going to bring in different groups of people, different perspectives, and just make it so much better for everybody.
Yes, hard to give up your entire life to a company when you know full well you're working in a climate where you're never going to get the carriage clock and the pension at the end of it.
Exactly.
And so you're getting very little in return, and so you need something for your life. Can I talk to you about identity, because it comes up loads in the book? This is at the root of the problem, according to the book, the notion that women are having to be other people in order to succeed, as we define the word of success, instead of embracing who we really are. Can you talk more about your journey in that area, where you went with your identity instead of against it, I suppose?
Well, I think if you are totally free with your identity and feel confident in who you truly are, that frees you up to be honest and open, and the truth is the most empowering thing. So if we look at, any groups, whether that is, women having to perform in a different way in order to succeed in business, it's quite exhausting. And I think one of my most freeing, things around identity was when I fell in love with a woman and had to say, the identity that you've all thought and interacted with me on, well, there's a different one here now. And even when I went into the public eye on TV and the lovely News of the World found out about it, and we woke up on a Sunday morning to my poor producer going, please don't be upset, but there's a double-page spread in the News of the World that said, Mary, Queen of Shocks. The fact that, and there was the title Shocks associated with me said something quite terribly negative. So Mary, the shock is, oh, she's living with a woman.
Yeah.
So you have to deal with that. And your instinct, my instinct was, what's that going to do to my career? And we're talking 15 years ago, and there's been a massive shift in identity, And the way that it's only been able to shift is by us saying yes to gay marriage, yes to accepting this. And we're talking about ethnic minorities, all those suppressed groups. The only way anyone's ever been able to break through and say, we're not the norm, and who wants to be the bloody norm anyway? But the only way that we can push those barriers is by going out and saying, this is me. And the more that businesses can accept that, the more that they are going to bring in people who will bring their true selves to work. And if we keep business without opening up to truth and identity, we end up with boards of like-minded people who invariably, and still today, are white, middle-aged, middle-class men. That is the truth. So that has to change, and it won't be just about quotas, or let's put 2 women on the board, because the culture will still be the same. It has to come from up, and it has to come from young people starting out in the workplace and saying, this is me, this is me. And I had to wait many years to feel free to be who I was within business and all of my life. And I don't think, and I wouldn't want anybody to do that who in any way works with me.